now is I'll pass you over to Mark for the last presentation. So I'm just giving you control, Mark.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, morning, everyone. Let me just see if that's gonna. You might need to stay on standby to be able to do it for me. So as Ian said, I'm Mark Frost. I work at Twinn by Haskoning. I'm just going to take a conscious of time, so I'll try and sort of get it done so there's enough time for a few questions at the end. But I'm just going to give you a quick, brief overview today of the data sets that we have, and yeah, just a little bit of background of sort of who we are. So yeah, it doesn't so far. It's not. Oh, maybe it is.
Yeah, there might be a bit of a lag.
All right. Well, hopefully it stays on that slide. Yeah. So just a bit of background about who we are. So. Twinn is a brand within the business Haskoning. Haskoning is a sort of long-established, traditionally consulting engineering business. It's a Dutch-based business, but about 30 years ago it launched a digital part of the business, and then that was sort of to develop digital brands and acquire kind of software and data services businesses. And about 5 or 6 years ago now, it acquired a business called Ambiental Risk Analytics, which was the market leader in providing flood risk data, originally to the insurance sector, and then sort of latterly financial services, and now numerous other sectors as well. But yeah, so the part of that acquisition really was to kind of take the flood data that Ambiental had, UK only, and look at kind of expanding that to give it a wider reach, and also look at other perils and other data sets that we could build. So now, a couple of years ago, we launched a global data set. We've got a global flood model that's got a consistent resolution for anywhere in the world. We've also got covering up to 19 different perils. But for the purposes of today, I'll sort of focus on flood. And then, yeah, about 3 years ago, Haskoning Digital was rebranded as Twinn. That's a bit of a background. Oh, yeah, it's working. Just a bit of our presence in the market. So Twinn, we work with 8 out of the top 10 lenders, including Lloyds, NatWest, and many others. I mentioned there that we featured in their recent sort of climate reports. Obviously, those are publicly available. I've used an example from one of those in one of the next slides. I won't sort of go into all of these points, but I think that the main sort of takeout is that flood is obviously becoming a greater issue in the UK. Last year, I think we saw £2.4 billion worth of damages caused by flood, which is significantly higher than the annual average of 1.3 billion. And I think the trend, there's a projection of it increasing about 35% in the next 25 years. So sort of getting a forward-looking view really on what the risk to your current portfolio is and how that's going to change in the future is becoming more important. And yeah, here's just a snippet really from that climate report that I mentioned from Lloyds. So what they were sort of doing here was looking at using our data to look at a portfolio of 2 million properties and kind of say, taking the higher band risk properties within each region to understand sort of what that looks like today and how that's likely to change in the future. And I think there's a couple of takeouts here, which is obviously one, the risk is set to increase. So the number of properties entering a higher band of risk is going to increase over time. But also it's sort of a national problem. So it's not just sort of restricted to a certain region or so. You know, climate change is having an impact across all regions that they operate. And so again, I guess that sort of just highlights the point from a planning perspective and sort of a strategic angle, getting a view on kind of how the risk is likely to change and in which region is going to be key. And I sort of flagged a couple of products here. So we've got Flood Map Climate and Flood Score Climate. So we do have a Flood Map, which is present day, and Flood Score, which is present day. And then, several years ago, we developed the climate version. And all our data sets start with a map. And then from the map, we take the depths at a property level. And from there, convert that to an average annual loss, which is then converted to a 0 to 100 risk score. And the climate data sets, we have the data goes up to 2100. And yeah, I'll sort of just in this slide covers, these are sort of the key product features. So all our data is 5 meter resolution. Important next UK-wide coverage, so that it takes into account England, Wales and Scotland. We have data for those regions all at a consistent level. It's annually updated, so anytime there's any enhancements to any of the input data, we implement that on the model, and that's relayed in our annual updates. It takes into account different climate scenarios, so it's got 20, 30, 50, 80. We can also do 5-yearly increments as well. A couple of clients have requested that. We cover the key RCP scenarios, so 2.6, 4.5, 6, 8.5, 6 return periods, and we've got dynamic flood defence modelling. So we provide a couple of views where flood defences are in place, so you can get a score based on the depths with flood defences and based on the depths without flood defences. And we've got obviously we provide property level risk scoring. So, and I guess uniquely that takes into account average annual loss and average damage ratios as standard. So when you take the flood score product, that comes with it. And yeah, again, I won't sort of dwell too much on this, but I just it's a short snippet really of what kind of, so you got the map data, and then this is kind of the underlying data, and this is, we've just taken out the tidal element particularly, but obviously you'd have this for pluvial, fluvial, tidal. We cover all 3 flood sources. In the top chart it shows we record the depth in flooding, obviously for present day and future years. Then that depth is then converted to average annual loss score. Then that's converted into a risk rating score out of 100. So then there's a consistent measurement, 0 to 100 scoring, risk rating scoring. And just on the methodology below, we take the highest of a pluvial, fluvial, and then add tidal to get a combined score. So what you might want to do if you're looking at a portfolio of assets is take the combined score for that group and kind of assess the risk level there. And then obviously you can look at the underlying data and understand what the individual scores are. And this is, just an example of how for the scores can be a really beneficial angle of sort of analysing a large portfolio. So this is looking at the percentage in this example of those assets and kind of what percentage is zero risk present day, what percentage is at high risk, and how that's likely to sort of change in the future under different RCP scenarios and at different time points. So obviously we've selected 2 different time points here, but you can sort of very quickly get an understanding of what percentage of your portfolio is at risk, and again address that and have a look at how that's likely to change in the future to sort of assist with future planning. Yeah, I'll sort of skip through these, a bit conscious of time. So this is just a visualization really of the map, so you can kind of see how that sort of is reflected, and sort of how from a visual point of view you can understand how the flooding develops if you're focusing on a specific property. So in this example, the blue squares are kind of represented by a 5-meter grid, and then they've got the shade of color is the depth. But you can just sort of see as you skip along, and in this example we're taking a high emission scenario. You go to 2050, you can kind of see that the depth of flooding, if flooding gets deeper, and obviously sort of the impact in that, not just that property, the surrounding area increases. So it's gone from probably what was previously a moderate risk to high risk, and then obviously in 2080 it goes to a very high risk property, and you can also understand the effect that's got around it. And that's obviously typically the case if you started off with a property that's maybe moderate risk now, you project it forward, it's likely to become higher risk in the future. And then this is just another look at, so if you're looking at a slightly wider area, overlaying the different time periods, so you can kind of understand what the flooding looks like present day within this specific area in the orange, and then in the purple sort of what it might become in 2050, kind of the extent, the depth of that flooding, and then how that increases further still by 2080. So you can look at it at the property level, and you can obviously look at it at a wider region. Yeah, and then very quickly, as I said, we cover up to 90 different perils, but I think the 2 that I just flagged really would be that normally accompany flood with our clients are subsidence, coastal erosion, and again, those data sets have a 0 to 100 risk rating. So again, you can do the similar sort of analysis on that. Yeah, well, let me skip now. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I think just a flag. So I think Ian said at the top that the sample data available. So speak to ODC about that. Obviously, they've got product summaries. If there's any other, if you want more flood information about flood data or more information about any of the other data sets, then happy to provide that, and via ODC and set up a conversation. But yeah, thanks very much. tried to skip through that.
Yeah, brilliant. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's good. Yeah, have I got a control back? Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so some really good examples of how you can use the kind of the flooding data to kind of identify properties that might be at risk in either future or kind of now, which is great. So just a single slide again. So we've got loads of housing associations we're having conversation with that are looking at using the flooding data to better understand the risk to the properties, and you can see why after Mark's presented. Again, the managed service team can perform a spatial analysis, so we can easily identify the properties that are at risk, as well as providing a spreadsheet that shows not only current day risk but also future risk as well. And this data allows you to be proactive in understanding and mitigating the risk to your assets and land from flooding. So by identifying at-risk properties in advance, that you can plan necessary precautions to protect your investments and ensure resident safety as well.